Okay, with Nekia Wright, who is the co-director of AFROLISTIC, Black Healing from Zimbabwe to the Bay. What a great film this is. Congratulations. I hope it's serving you well. This is let's just say right off the bat, this is a personal story for you. You became one of the main characters of the film. It's about your heritage, where your background, where you came from. What inspired you to make this film, to take the time to make this film?
I decided to make this film after my first trip to Africa, which was to Zimbabwe. I had originally gone to learn traditional healing practices. I reached out to a couple of different areas and practitioners, but there I found just a culture and community of people who are really willing to teach and to share, and to and wanted to also have a symbiotic relationship with other healers, learning from other healers as well.
So you've been there before. Not to sound corny, but did you feel at home when you first went there?
Yes, I felt so at home. And I've traveled to other places, but this is my first time traveling to Africa, and I really just didn't want to come back. And I also saw that as someone who'd been on a healing journey for many years, the practices that I've learned have really helped me, and given me a lot of skills. But the healing of being on the motherland, like on the continent, is was something that I like. It was indescribable. I felt so whole and complete coming back, and very grounded in myself and in my spirit.
Yeah.
And it was very safe. It was safer than any place that I, as like a Black woman here in the US, have ever felt. As far as just being physically safe, being able to move around without being targeted, things like that as well.
That's so interesting. Because the Western media would have a different kind of point of view on that, what you just said, right? So they would say differently because America's so safe and opportunities, blah blah blah, right? But you saying that makes a lot of sense. Do you have siblings? Have they gone to Africa as well?
No, not yet. I have gotten my cousins and other family members traveling. So now they've started going, like traveling into the Caribbean. I'm going to go with my cousin to Jamaica. And I would love for some of them to be able to come and visit with me in Africa, and to explore and get to know Zimbabwe for themselves.
So do you know where you come from, like specifically? Like have you retraced your roots as I'm just curious about that.
Yes, I've done a very general ancestry test, and I'm actually going to do one that's more specific. It'll tell me like the specific communities and tribes. But I have a Southern Bantu, which is where the folks in Zimbabwe, they originate from. The Actually, there's two communities. The original community, which were like the Sioux people, I think, and then the Southern Bantu are the folks who became the Shona people, and they're the folks who built Great Zimbabwe, which is one of the great cities there, ancient cities there. So I found out that when I was there the first time, that I had Southern Bantu, and then I have from I have ancestors from Ghana, from Nigeria, a lot more of like Cameroon, like Western Bantu as well, and then ancestors all the way up in Mali. So I found that I had ancestry all over Africa, and it's one of my goals for the film is to be able to explore other areas where I found that I have ancestry from as well.
So you are very candid in this film, right? Where you describe your childhood, which wasn't, let's just say it wasn't the greatest, and you didn't really have a matriarch or a patriarch kind of like to guide you, and you were, like you said, you were like, let's just say you were confused and you needed some emotional healing. Like I'm just doing the bullet points, right? So basically, it's more deeper than that. But basically, so what? It must have been scary to go to Africa for the first time. I'm just curious about what propelled you to just kind of go there and kind of see things.
Well, as I said, I had started studying with the Zenata, which is
Yeah,
the Zimbabwean National
but going
Traditional
there is a different,
Healers.
it's a whole different like can of worms, right?
Yes, and then I was seeing a Zimbabwean, so I was actually dating someone from
Okay,
Zimbabwe. We're still friends, but we're not together anymore. So I was going to visit to see if it would be a place that I would want to live. We were talking about
okay,
kind of our next steps, and so one of his things was I want to raise my family in Zimbabwe. So if that's something we're going to do, then I want to let you know that. And so I was like, well, I've never been there. I want to go check it
okay,
out. And so so I went there, and his dad actually came along with me for that first trip and drove. And so being able to have people both that I had connected to through my
yeah.
teaching practice, as well as people who already felt like family, because they were connected to my partner. I really I was really held quite well.
Gotcha. That
Mhm.
explains a lot because you always need a bridge. You always need somebody like to feel safe when you go, especially like somewhere the unknown like this. So that was always that was my big question. I was so curious how like because it's very gutsy. Then did you go back like, the second time? And then what did then you basically said, okay, I want to make a film with this, and then you had a co-director? Is that like how was that process?
Oh, that was funny. So I was planning on going back anyways. I've started a teacher fellowship to bring Black teachers to Africa so that they can learn the culture and we can start building curriculum and share aspects of like the culture, ecology, things like that with our youth, because you know I shouldn't be 40 years old and just now really having an authentic connection to the continent.
Yeah.
So, so one teacher was actually funded for that trip. So I was taking that teacher for the trip. So the first half was that. And then I had built relationships with a lot of the different women that I had met who I saw were doing really good work, either traditional healers, community leaders, teachers. So we stayed in contact over the trips were 2 years apart. And so we stayed in contact. I created a WhatsApp group, and they are really my saving grace. So they supported in helping me find the film crew. So I found the film crew after I arrived to Zimbabwe, and I reached out to the women, and they said, "Oh, we've met this wonderful crew." It was actually led by like two Black women, and they connected me with the film crew there,
Mm,
Makope. And then those women were, and some of the traditional healers like Sakuru Sabanda were able to connect me with specific healers and regions. Like, you know, like really they were like, these are places we haven't even had a chance to go. And so and then for the and connecting me to the different dance groups as well. And those women also supported in preparing the spaces and just like organizing, getting the city permits and things for the for recording all of that.
yeah. And what about the people in the film?
Mm.
Getting their like, because let's assume that they haven't been filmed in a documentary before. Like, how did you explain to them like about the process, about having them in the film? Was everybody okay with that? I'm just curious about that process.
Oh yes. So my first time there, I recorded as much as I could, just on my phone.
Yeah,
And that's what kind of gave me, you know, I started sharing it with folks, and some people back here would break down into tears. And I was like, wow, like this is really powerful. And this is just me on my phone.
yeah,
So so what I found, and what it's like a something in our culture, like stay ready, right? Like it doesn't matter what you're doing, you already got always got to stay ready for an opportunity. And so that is what Zimbabweans, they are like always ready. And so what I noticed in my first trip was anytime I had questions or anything, once I got the camera going, even before or after, people were always very clear, very forthcoming, and very open to the opportunity of sharing their culture, and getting their name and voice and image out there. So I saw that on my first trip, and then we were able to connect with folks the folks we connected to for this trip, many of them I had already met, or had been in
Yeah.
conversation with for at least a year. And so the main thing was I forgot to get the licenses. Like I paid everyone because it, you know, it takes time to get to the places
Yeah.
and for that, but I forgot to get everyone to sign the media releases. And so that was a huge hassle because I got back here and I talked to like a friend and I was like, I think I have something really great. Like I wasn't expecting for it to be this good. And she saw it, she's like, that's really good. She's like, yeah, but did you get everyone to sign their releases? And I was like, oh no. And so that it took a lot of time, almost like a few months of going back and forth, getting folks showing folks how to use the signature on
Yeah.
WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Like, but we got it done.
Yeah.
Like even the children getting the schools and the
Yeah.
parents and families to sign off, but we got it done. And that was really the most difficult part. And most of that was technology and just my own ignorance.
That's well, yeah. Well, but you got it done. We all make mistakes, right? And plus, you're
Yeah.
probably got 100 things going on in your head. Plus, you're like in the film as well, and you just had this spiritual. It seems like you had a spiritual awakening. So let's assume that there's a lot of things. There's a lot going on. So what you did, like you forgetting to do that, is totally understandable. So but then you interview is it Costanzia? I hope I said her name, or Costanzia.
Yeah, yeah. And Buya Constancia. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Costanzia. Okay. Yeah. You interviewed her, and then her partner, and then so how did you get them to like sit down and kind of talk about like their process?
Oh, great. Yes. So those were both connected to me through the Traditional Healers Association. And so for many of the folks it's to share, you know, to share about what they're doing. And it really wasn't very difficult. Like it took no convincing at all. People are very open to share. And it's something that over the last I as I've spoken with other Zimbabweans, I found over the last 10 to 15 years there's been a shift in the culture where the leadership of the country has started to embrace the traditional practices, and it's become like one of the what is that, just it's become something that people feel a lot more safe sharing
Mhm.
sharing about as well. So and I was really grateful that she shared both sides too, that some folks choose to come to her for traditional practices and others come for Christian
Yeah,
services.
that's that was surprising to me that they do that. So, and then it also like it's just aesthetically, it's just a beautiful place. It just looks beautiful, and you got some really great shots, and you got some amazing people. What propelled you to like, because you could just have made it, you could have made a documentary just about this world and this experience, but you also made yourself, like we described before, like kind of like the main character in the film. What was your interest in doing that? Like basically talking about your story.
So that it was not as intentional as I was really hoping to focus as much on Zimbabwe. And the
Yeah.
idea was, you know, so many Black folks here in the US don't get a chance to travel. Some cannot travel, right? And so many cannot travel, like can't get passports. We have more Black folks incarcerated right now than were enslaved in the 1850s. And so there's a lot of barriers. And so I really just wanted folks to be able to see it and to feel it. But when I got there and I started talking to folks and the crew, I found that there was so much miseducation about what it's like here in the US, and folks were super curious. And when I pitched the project to the film crew, I shared with them I'd gotten $5,000 from my city to go towards this production and as a piece to share with the Black community to
Mm.
support us in our healing as a collective. And so I shared that with them and kind of the outline. And then when I got the first cut, like half of it was me. And I was like, no, it's not about me. I don't want to be that director or that
Yeah.
person. But as I spoke with them more, I could see that that was for them. that was actually what the Zimbabweans, they want to connect with us, with
Yeah,
Black folks here, have a clearer understanding of the culture here just as much as we want to connect there. And they have a lot, the idea is that all, Americans are rich and we all have money. So to hear my story was really powerful for folks there. And it kind of, I realized that I had to compromise, and that this couldn't just be a one-sided film of them sharing their culture, that we need to leave space for us to share here, because there's this movement that's happening here in the US, a healing justice movement that I've been a part of. And so and it's and it I've noticed it in cities where there have been a lot of unrest in regards to racial justice. It's been a response. And so, I, it wasn't something that I saw coming in. I was like on the phone by the time we were doing the post, like I left. And so I was doing it on my phone. My computer had broken. I was on the backup phone. My other phone had broken. And I'm like on the old phone and I'm like, no,
yeah.
no, it's not about me. And so that's what we ended up with. And I'm very happy with it.
Well, it works, and you bring up such interesting elements because it's like their perception of the United States and their perception of you, like as an individual. Because you even said it, you just said it 10 minutes ago that you're safe, you feel safe there, and and you don't feel like I'm so hopefully I'm not putting words in your mouth, but you don't feel as safe or safe in the United States as you do in Africa. That's
And
like that must have blown them away a little bit. If you like, that's so interesting.
I mean, I live in San Francisco and we have 7,000 people on the street, like living on the street.
Yeah,
That blew them away. Like they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Yes, yes, this is like a
yeah.
huge problem here." And they were like, "Just living?" And I showed them pictures and they were just like, they couldn't believe it. Just kind of what it's actually like here for folks, for many folks, right? What outside of the movies and things like that. But yeah, and I've traveled all around the
Outside the
country and I
movies.
have
Yeah,
that same feeling of not, of just I have to be vigilant or something could happen. But I don't need that same level of hypervigilance there.
yeah. It's amazing. It's like you said, like what they see, and they see what they see, right? They have
Hmm.
America's good at selling themselves. Like they have there's a good perception, I guess, right? So, but the rich are rich and the poor are poor. That's the problem, I guess, right?
Exactly.
How is the without like I how is the political kind of situation or the financial situation in Zimbabwe? Like are people how is the situation there? Is it like you said you feel safe, but are people are there homeless people there? Are there is there problem? I'm just curious.
Oh yes, so there I did not see, I saw like maybe one or two people like just on the street.
Yeah,
So there the homelessness population is nothing, is not nothing like what I see here in San Francisco. Politically we were that filming was happening during the election. And so there was just tension because folks weren't sure what was going to happen.
yeah,
And we actually were supposed to film in another location, and we ended up doing that instead staying in Harare, because some of the rural areas, um they, because I'm from the US and we were filming, they didn't know if it was any way, and they didn't want to take any chances that it might be connected to the election, and
yeah.
no one wanted any drama. And so we did have to adjust things, just to meet folks' needs, and them feeling safe in their own country as well. Um, Economically, I noticed a difference when I was there in 2021, like during COVID, and they were hit pretty hard just because folks weren't able to leave. Like there
Yeah.
were curfews, and it was very strict. And so folks were, and there weren't many opportunities for folks to work from home. And so I found that was like people were, money was very tight. And when I arrived again in 2023, I saw the same. And that's what something I've been, one of my passions is cooperatives, and really utilizing cooperatives to support folks, and build just build stability for communities. And so that's something I'm looking at as this documentary, and as this project, is how to make it co-owned, so that all the folks involved can receive benefits or royalties. I'm still learning the licensing and how that works and everything,
Yeah,
but we're looking at ways to, as well as ways to utilize the documentary to promote some of the projects that they have going on there. Many of them have really amazing projects that they've already have been doing for years with very few resources. So, and looking at ways to support folks just in connecting virtually, connecting to virtual, like being able to give virtual consultations and services. There's for some reason, folks in Zimbabwe can't receive PayPal or Cash App or anything like that. Like they're not under, there's no specific restriction on the country. It's just specific companies, especially the financial institutions.
yeah,
I don't understand the specifics, but it makes it very difficult, say, for them to set up an Etsy shop and or something like that.
yeah,
So I've on this side, I've had the opportunity to meet the ambassador twice. And one thing that he said, because I have this project where I take teachers there, when the teachers are coming to learn, leaving for Zimbabwe, I've encouraged them to fill up their suitcases with school materials, anything the communities might need, sanitary napkins for the women, things like that. And the ambassador has said, when we're ready to go, which our next one will be 2025, that he can get us a letter so that we don't have to pay taxes and all of these things to bring materials that we're going to be giving away in. So it's
yeah,
something that I'm thinking about, as you saw, the way that I grew up, very poor, and I really had to work hard to make my life work here. But then
yeah,
I see how privileged I am, if other girls who grew up like I did, but in Zimbabwe, where there were no public resources, and I've survived off of public resources.
yeah.
It's one of, and so I've been looking at ways that I can utilize this project and the other projects that I have going on to support folks there, because they've been such a great just a great support to me.
Thank you for that. And I know that Zimbabwe's had some issues with inflation, right? Their inflation went crazy. Like ours went up 6%. I think theirs went up like 100%. So
Yeah,
I don't even know like how like so the money just changes drastically, right? So that just messes everything up. So
each day in the grocery store, we'll see, you have to look and see what the rate is, and then there's like different rates depending on where you are. And yeah, it's very interesting. I just it's overall what I saw with most of the people, and one of the reasons why I tried to travel in this way is to not get caught up with like the 1% who already have resources, but
yeah.
really seeing what regular people, what the needs of like your everyday folks are there.
Well, it's a very young country in terms of its independence, right? So I think it was 1980. So it's only 45. The government has been functioning for 45 years, which is, like that's nothing. It's like, that's 45 years old. It's like it's a blip in the radar. So it's just kind of building itself up, I guess, from that perspective.
And there's a lot of curiosities that I think that the media here, I hear a lot of things, but when I'm there, it's actually very different. One being that one of my teachers, Prof. Shoko, hopefully he'll be in the next documentary.
Mhm.
He called me, I think, in 2021. I started my studies in 2020, and he said, I'm going to be in the US. And I was like, oh, great. Where are you going to be? He got a fellowship, he got a Fulbright to go to Vanderbilt and
Mhm.
study LGBTQ studies because the country was curious
Isn't
about
it legal?
how the country is curious about how
Yeah.
services for LGBTQ folks work, and they had started doing different expos to find out what people's needs were. They wanted to figure out how to meet the needs of LGBTQ folks and of sex workers. But when they held the expos, no one came because they thought they were going to be targeted. But
Yeah.
the government is actually looking to understand how to serve their needs, and there's an LGBTQ center there. They are very active. They're in Harare as well as Bulawayo. And it's, the law is very specific, around, it's illegal for men to be gay there. That's what the law
Yeah, it's
says.
illegal, right? 'Cause it's illegal to be
Hmm.
homosexual.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so but to hear like that, there 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 are people at all levels trying to understand how to meet folks' needs, realizing that number one, they're Zimbabweans, no matter what. And so it was very curious. It's a new project. I'm looking forward to connecting with the LGBTQ centers next time I go, and I'm hoping to do an interview there.
Because well, that's a huge thing, right? But
Right.
from a social aspect, like what is the like they go to prison, right? If you're involved in a, they catch you in some sort of homosexual or lesbian sexual act, you go to prison, right? In Zimbabwe.
The law says it is illegal for men. It is very specific. So
Oh,
listen to
okay.
what I'm saying. Yes, the law says it's
Yeah.
illegal for men to have sex with men. It's not illegal to say you're gay. It's not illegal to wear a gay flag.
Yeah.
It's not illegal to be a part of a gay organization. And so it's very, it's just want to be clear.
No, no, no.
And
Thank you for letting me know because it's like it's the first time where like woman's rights is better than the men's rights somewhere,
it's a
right? Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
to see that even with that, they're still researching
Yeah.
how, like, what are other folks doing to
Yeah.
sending, and so I really, like, as you said, it's a young country and it's always evolving. And the way that I think some of that safety is, that I feel there was just not that sense of being targeted on a lot of different levels.
Yeah. Well, personally, I'm from Niagara Falls, Ontario. That's where I grew born and raised. So I always heard about Zimbabwe because the Victoria Falls is a
Hmm.
larger waterfalls than Niagara Falls. So everywhere you go in Niagara Falls, it's like Victoria Falls is the number one and Niagara Falls is the number two. So I was like, I always wanted, I got to go to Zimbabwe. I was a kid. I had no perspective of anything. I always wanted to go to Zimbabwe to see the Victoria Falls because it looks beautiful, right? So from a tourist standpoint, people got to go see that, I guess, right?
Yes, it is beautiful.
Yeah,
It's like magical. We saw it at sunrise.
yeah,
I didn't have the film crew with me then, but I have my own like little photos and
yeah,
footage. You got to check it out and get over to it's right where the countries are all connecting, like Botswana, and is that, so they're all here, and so
yeah.
you can see this connection of all three countries, and you can get over and see. I've never seen so many elephants in my life.
Oh, wow.
There's so many, like, to get on that Champion River.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really magical.
All right. Well, it looks like you were kind of pointing out that you kind of want to make this a series, and it looks like as we're talking, there's a lot of stories to tell. Let's to put it mildly, right? About you and you want to go to different countries, different healing communities, right? So it's like Well, there's 54 countries in Africa, so there's a lot of places to travel to.
Yep,
Right.
that's my goal. I think it would be great, just starting with my lineage. Many of us here as in the US, Black folks, we have, there's some similarities in our lineages, so it would
Mhm.
be, I think, a really wonderful. There's also, like I said, other places. It would be great, like each series a different country, right? Like so many there's the Great Zimbabwe. I didn't get a chance to get there with the film crew. So getting to Great Zimbabwe, getting to Victoria Falls as well. There places there just in Zimbabwe. I would love that. Like, and really being I actually connecting with some schools now to be able to screen the documentary, build a curriculum around it, and also teaching folks, not just youth, but people in general, that this came out of, like, I'm not a filmmaker. I
Yeah.
know nothing. Like, I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher for 16 years. And so, but I had a passion, and I was nervous, but I shared that passion with a few people, and they were like, yeah. And then I wrote a proposal, and I got it funded for this first part, through my city, through an arts grant.
Yeah.
So, and through our Office of Economic Workforce Development. So really to show folks, sometimes we get there, it seems very dire in the world, and that there's, we only see the bad things that are happening, but we have it. We can create the solutions. We can create the opportunities ourselves.
100%. And great, like I said, you are a filmmaker now. So you can say that you're a filmmaker now. You're an award-winning filmmaker. I wish
Thank
you the
you.
best of success with this film. I think it's amazing. And let's talk again. Keep in touch. Let's talk again when you make your next film or when this is a series. And congratulations on you yourself as a person, because we got to know you and how far you've come. It's quite the accomplishment. And life wasn't easy for you. And look at you. Like hopefully you're proud of yourself.
I am. I
Yeah.
am. Feel really grateful. Thank you so much for
Thank
this
you.
opportunity. And yeah, I'm really honored by the award I've received, and I'm looking forward to staying connected.
Thank you.